So for fans of Suikoden, Eiyuden Chronicle, The Legend of Heroes, we all have one thing in common. We know how to wait for our games. Suikoden fans had to wait, over 15 years for a new game to be announced, and that game is still only a spiritual successor to that series, even though it does look incredibly promising. And the Legend of Heroes fans often have to wait years between localization announcements for that respective series just to see if every single game will make it to North America. But things are looking bright for both franchises at the moment. We have Eiyuden Chronicle coming in 2.5, 3 years, and it looks really good. And for the Legend of Heroes series, most of the games have made it over to North America now. There seems to be a good publishing deal going forward, and the chances of us getting all of the games seem to be incredibly high. So now is a great time for fans of either franchise to get into the other. And there is a lot of overlap in terms of themes and gameplay mechanics that I think fans of either series would like in the other, and I want to go over that and explain why fans of, Suikoden and Eiyuden might find a lot to love in The Legend of Heroes and vice versa. So one of the reasons why I love both of these series so much is because of the extensive world building that happens in both of them. In Suikoden, for every game, we are in one location for that game, we get to know it quite well, resolve a conflict, and then we move on in the next game to a different region, generally with a brand new cast of characters, with some making cameo appearances. And in the Legend of Heroes series, we're spending anywhere from 2 to 4 games in one specific region or territory. So therefore, you're getting to know the characters in those games incredibly well based on the amount of time you're spending with them. There's a lot of characterization and character development going on. You learn an absolute ton about the region you're in, its politics, the different factions and how they interact with each other, the culture. They're just so rich. For the Legend of Heroes series, there's been 11 games so far, and we've uncovered less than half of the world map. So there is a ton more to come for this series, and it makes me drool thinking about all the regions we get to go to still, and all the characters and cultures and all the different types of politics we have yet to see. And I think that's something that Suikoden fans and Eiyuden fans could be really excited about in this series, because I love that. I love going to new regions in the game, and after hearing all these little things about them in the other games, like little tidbits of information about them, and then us finally getting to go there and uncover them. Very much like Suikoden. Often for the future games, we would hear little things about the area before we go there, and then, we'd obviously see it fully fleshed out in its own original game, and just something so satisfying about that. And just like the Suikoden series, in the Legend of Heroes series, every region is distinct culturally. They all have a very unique ethnic flavor to them, and it just makes the world much more rich because of that. And because we're spending so much time in a given region in the Legend of Heroes series, anywhere from 2 to 4 games, we become very invested in what's going on in that country, and it just absorbs you into the story that much more because you're getting so involved in that country's, regional politics. And because we're spending anywhere from 2 to 4 games in a particular region for the Legend of Heroes series, we're becoming very invested in what's going on in any particular area, in terms of, the characters and what's going on with them, their development, the regional politics, what's happening to the different factions within each country or territory. So I think that's something that Suikoden and Eiyuden fans could potentially really like in this series, where we're spending an extended amount of time in a certain area, but it's just giving it more nuance, more depth, and it's just making, the world much more rich. So for the Suikoden and Eiyuden series of games, obviously war is the big kind of overarching theme of those games. And war is a big overarching theme in a lot of the Legend of Heroes series of games. Some games feature it a little bit more than others, but war is always in the backdrop or in the background of the Legend of Heroes, very much so. And sometimes it's very much in the forefront. Sometimes you're in the middle of massive conflicts in these games. So for fans of Suikoden and Eiyuden, we've dealt with, civil war, we've dealt with rebellion, we've dealt with foreign invasion as political themes, and the Legend of Heroes has all of that and then some. It has military coups, it has rebellion, it has civil war, it again has foreign invasion, it has multiple political factions vying for power on a constant basis. So if you love politics in RPGs, both of these series are for you. 100%. And very much like the Suikoden series of games, The Legend of Heroes, it starts small. You start in one specific region, and then it just grows and gets bigger and bigger because you're going from region to region to region, and you're finding out more about the world, learning more about the world's mysteries, whereas Suikoden had, a little bit of a hint of an overarching mystery for the series. Legend of Heroes, that's almost, I would argue, its main overarching plot point. It has a great flair for, slowly unraveling, the world's larger mysteries, which is something I just gobble up, personally speaking. So if you like that type of thing, if you like slowly uncovering a world's lore game to game to game and just slowly filling out pieces of the puzzle, the Legend of Heroes series is for you, absolutely. So, and that's one thing that it definitely beats Suikoden at. It just has a more planned out and satisfying overarching plot. But that's not to say, Suikoden doesn't have that too. Like, there are definitely, overarching plot points and stuff that, are bleeding into, subsequent games. It's just the Legend of Heroes is spending much more time with its narrative than the Suikoden series did. A big thing for Suikoden and Eiyuden fans is the sheer amount of characters you get every game. You're getting 108 characters per game. A lot of the games you're getting just a straight up brand new set of 108 characters every time. And for some games, you're getting, maybe anywhere from a handful to maybe 20, 30 characters, making cameo appearances and resolving plot points and plot threads. Whereas the Legend of Heroes, it's very much a smaller cast of characters at the beginning, kind of like the stereotypical, 8 characters or whatever that a JRPG might have. But as the games go on, as the series develops, you're getting more and more characters available per game. You're getting tons of character cameos, and characters from, 6-7 games ago are showing up in the 10th, 11th game still. And, they're still being developed. They're still getting involved in major plot points. And it's just so satisfying, to see characters you haven't seen in 3 or 4 games pop up and be part of the plot all of a sudden, and getting to play them again in, brand new graphical form, right? So, there's a lot to love with that. So, I mean, while the Legend of Heroes doesn't have the quantity of characters, it does have quality of characters. And by the 10th game, I believe, the 10th game is forthcoming. It's coming out in October. I've heard we get to play, 40 different characters, get to perform 40 different goddamn characters in that game. People are very much saying it's like the end game of the Legend of Heroes. It's just like everybody's in it. So there's a lot to be excited about. So that's something I think Eiyuden and Suikoden fans could get behind. Absolutely. And while the Suikoden series of games does have some great musical scores, the Legend of Heroes series has it beat in terms of music. I will say that, especially when it comes to battle music. There's no comparison. So here, take a quick listen to one of my favorite battle tracks from the Trails of Cold Steel series of games. So I think that's another good reason for Suikoden fans to get into it. It has fantastic music. And another thing I think Suikoden fans would like about the Legend of Heroes series is it is a turn-based battle system that is just being more refined and fine-tuned with every subsequent game. So, I've been gushing about all the reasons why you should play the Legend of Heroes series, from, a Suikoden and Eiyuden fan perspective. But, let me cover some of the cons just so you're fully aware of, what you're getting into before you get into it, okay? So one of the things with the Legend of Heroes series is it is obviously a time commitment. We're getting to be 10 games deep here pretty soon. And these are not short games. They are very much narratively driven. There is a long story. Even if you just play the game for the story, they are meaty. So it is a time commitment to get into this series. Absolutely. But is it worth it? 100 fucking %. 110 fucking %. The time commitment is worth it. And while the Legend of Heroes series is, 4-person party battles and not, Suikoden 6, in the later games, you do get to take, 2 or 3 characters with you, keep them in reserve, and you can switch them in and out. So there is, a little bit of wiggle room there in terms of, the amount of characters you can have with you and you can use in combat, right? And another thing with the Legend of Heroes series, and I found this very much to be the case with at least some of the later games, is, there are anime tropes in it, but that is never something that really bothered me. As an anime fan, I'm used to anime tropes. They don't really rub me the wrong way. So, you are going to be your own best judge if that's going to bother you or not. Some games seem to have more of kind of like the tropes going on than others, but once again, it's just a matter of personal preference. Either it's going to really bother you or it's not going to bother you at all. But one thing I am happy to say that the Legend of Heroes series does incredibly well, as opposed to maybe say, its anime counterparts or whatever, is it has solid English voice acting. Like fucking incredibly solid English voice acting. Like I don't even use the Japanese tracks because the English tracks are so enjoyable and the cast does a great job. Like they definitely spent money on getting a decent English cast for these games, and I'm so happy they did. It's very much, it reminds me of the Dragon Quest series of games. The English voice acting is often so good in those games, I don't need to listen to the Japanese tracks. So that is an option for people who don't like listening to Japanese audio, and they have a hard time listening to, like the anime-esque English quality of a lot of, anime games or cinema. And now is a great time to get into either of these series. So for years, the Legend of Heroes series, it was plagued with, indecisiveness in terms of, publishers not knowing if they'd profit from publishing these games or not because they're so text heavy and they cost so much to translate. So there's 3 sub-series currently within the overarching, Trails series of the Legend of Heroes games. There's the Trails in the Sky series, which is the first 3 games, which are localized for PC. There's the next series where there's the wrinkle. So we have the cross-spell duology, essentially. So the first game has an excellent fan translation available for PC, and it's very easy to download, very easy to patch. I played it. It is the best fan translation I have ever played for a game, especially for the amount of text they had to translate. It is publisher quality. Absolutely. And they are working on the second game of the cross-spell duology currently, and they expect to have it out within the next 6 to 8 months. So, those 2 games have been missing for years and years and years, and they're finally becoming available to English-speaking audiences. The cross-spell duology is very much the biggest wrinkle for the series currently. There is, you have to jump through a couple of hoops in order to play them, but they're not difficult, and they are absolutely worth it. A lot of people regard the duology series of games as being the best of the series, arguably. Geofront, the people who are translating these games, are honestly doing God's work. Straight up doing God's fucking work doing this shit, and mad respect, and I salute you guys for doing this. For free, no less. And lastly, there's the quadrilogy, the Trails of Cold Steel series of games. And I feel this series of games is really what, kind of catapulted the Legend of Heroes popularity, because it very much seems to be gaining a lot more steam lately, and it has been criminally underappreciated for years, but it seems to be getting a bit more of a following now. And Trails of Cold Steel 4, which you see on the screen here, is being released in October, and it is the final game of that sub-series. And then going forward, we're having a bit of an interlude game, and then we're getting a brand new series within the overarching Trails series of Legend of Heroes games. And the Suikoden series of games, it's been dead for 15 years, but it's very much a series worth going back and playing, via emulation or whatever. There's great emulation software out there nowadays, and they're very easy to pick up and play that way if you can't find a console or don't own one. And they once again, they have, a ton of characters, great world building, great politics going on, cultural diversity and character diversity. They're amazing games and definitely worth playing. And there's a bright future ahead for them now because the creators of that series of games are launching Eiyuden Chronicle, a beautiful looking 2.5D graphic sprite-based game. So going forward, there's a lot of brightness in the future for both of these series. The Legend of Heroes series is picking up a lot of steam. It's getting the recognition it finally deserves. They're getting published on a regular basis. We can generally count on them being published now. And the Suikoden series, while it's been dead, it has a brand new spiritual successor game, the third most backed Kickstarter of all time. And, you know, from everything the creators have said and, you know, everything they've shown, it looks to be, you know, very much a return to form for the Suikoden franchise, you know, now known essentially as Eiyuden Chronicle. So thanks for joining me for this game break, everybody. I hope, you know, fans of either franchise try out the other, and I just hope you find something to love and hopefully something to tide you over while waiting for releases of, you know, your respective games. All right. Anyway, thanks for joining me, everybody. Talk to you later.